2 weeks ago, we looked at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's weirdest characters. While a lot of discussion has been about how diverse the game is and how unusual some metagames are, we often watch tournaments and simply expect to see certain characters in the top cut. For the most common characters in Smash Ultimate, it's a chaotic fight struggling between old top tiers, buff characters, and DLC characters that change everything. We're living in the most volatile metagame the Smash series has seen to date, and these are the most common characters in Smash Ultimate. Yeah, so just like the last video, we're going to briefly go over the stats that will be used. The first stat to note, power ranking usage. After compiling over 100 power rankings worldwide, we have a data breakdown that shows how much of the player base uses a character, such as 3.2% of ranked players using Wolf, as well as data showing how commonly characters appear on rankings. Wolf, for example, appears on 46.7% of power rankings. The other big piece of data that is used is placement percentages, where characters are weighed by the placement at an event adjusted by the scale of that event. Crosstabs exist for regionals, D and C tier events, and majors, B, A, and S tier events, so we can see if characters are getting their data just from regional events or mostly at top play. So with all that being said, these 10 characters are the most used per power ranking data gathered this year. Let's get it! Snake capped off his grand return to Smash Bros in 2019 with 5% of all the results and an impressive 4th place to close things out. Piloted by an endless number of players from all over the world, he found support from former Smash Bros Brawl players and an entirely new generation of mains. Snake has become one of Ultimate's most resilient characters. Despite slipping from his peak as a #1 contender, he remains in the top 5 most represented characters at international events and is only slightly less prevalent at the local level, piloted by at least one player on nearly half of all power rankings. Its greatest contributor is Dio, but his total share of results is a mere 15%, which is pretty low for the #1 main when you look at other contributing data. He's jammed around Apollo Kage and MVD, the former being a new generation Snake main, and the latter being one of Brawl's most revered Snake players. Another factor in his continued use is his omnipresence in the metagame. While his 40% appearance rate on power rankings alone tells you he's everywhere, we can see that mains are prevalent in North America, Europe, Japan, the Middle East, South America, and even lesser discussed areas like Southeast Asia. Despite being a matchup that everyone knows, that's not true, you Smash 4 players know nothing about this, and despite longevity both from his Brawl days and the fact that he has to stare down the DLC-driven metagame, Snake actually rose through the 2022 season. Not accounting for the low data volume of January, Snake gradually went from 10th in February to 5th by the end of June. With Shogun returning and having successful PGRV4 events, there are no signs that Snake is set for a substantial decline. Having weathered every major metagame threat to date, Snake remains popular at all levels of play. Steve! Despite lukewarm reception as a meta-capable character on release, Steve has morphed and evolved into one of the fastest rising characters in Smash history, going from 21st at the start of the season to 4th by the end of it, piloted by a tidal wave number of young mains that have emerged over the course of quarantine. Jake made the first big case for Steve's rise just out of the season at Glitched Infinite, but this will be replicated several times over by other top Steve mains promoting a full-blown controversies over Steve and his effects on the game. Adding to this is the fact that the character is uniquely popular in North America, with 7 out of 10 of Steve's biggest contributors coming from the United States. While Akola remains the standout at 17.2% of the results from Steve's at an international level, the United States takes up a whopping 60% of all high-level Steve results. It's definitely not uncommon to see some characters be popular in particular areas or figures like these to be true among a very limited set of mains, but Steve has 17 representatives contributing from the states and territories. These figures only become more lopsided when accounting for all of North America, as Mexican and Dominican Steve mains have made an impact. Yeah, even accounting for just local results, Steve is a bit of a terror. He is present for 47.7% of sample power rankings and accounts for 3% of the player base, placing him in 2nd for power ranking presence and tied 3rd for player base usage. On top of all of this, Steve's data after the PGR season has continued to improve. You know what they say, Steve gets buffed every 48 hours. If there's a character of the year for 2022, it's definitely Steve, a popular character that has driven endless discussion for months on end, sweeping majors and becoming one of the game's most prevalent and probably hated characters. Roy being good, that's definitely not new. Even in 2019, the character had already achieved top 20 status and had players like Goblin and Cola on the come up. During early 2020, it was pretty clear that Cola would continue to rise, with the quarantine period supporting this even further. People apparently saw something in this character because he became popular, immensely popular. As of 2022, Roy went from a high tier contender to being present on nearly 38% of all power rankings. Used by 2.3% of the power rank player base and represented even better at top level play, Roy is a superstar character that peaked at 1st during early 2022. He'd end up finishing the season at 3rd overall, but closed out 1st on character rankings for B+ tier events. While his lead wasn't substantial, it's not hard to see how he got it. 37 different players contributed to the character score over the course of the season. Cola and Goblin are unsurprisingly at the top of this list, with a combined 41.3% of Roy's results from repeated top performances at major events. Even Japan, which hadn't seen much from the character, eventually got Hikaru on board. Hikaru, who has used a variety of characters in Smash Ultimate, landed himself a Sumabato SP27 win and a 4th place in Roy's contributions for the season. While much of the story is sourced from the USA, you definitely can't ignore Flo's contributions. He's ended up 3rd, and he's been a devout Roy main since Smash 4 Wii U. In Ultimate, he's been a persistent top European player, and unsparingly has put a lot of work into Roy since 2019. Roy is easily one of Ultimate's most popular and visible characters. A favorable fate after 2 games of lackluster results in use. After being well behind the top of the pack at the end of 2019, R.O.B stopped lying and started actually playing for real, and this character jumped from 7th to 1st in early 2020 in results. Was this an anomaly? It sure seemed like it. Probably the result of a short season and regional popularity the character has seen since Brawl. However, R.O.B's first on character rankings was neither an anomaly nor something that waned. Since the resurgence of events in 2021, R.O.B remained in a steady and at times dominant number 1. Clearly leading character results and even having top representatives in both North America and Japan. Things definitely have since calmed a bit for R.O.B, now often fighting with characters like Steve, Palutena, or Roy for the number 1 spot. Still, shadows of his stint as the most popular character remain, with 41 unique mains contributing to R.O.B's results this year at C tier and higher events. In addition, he appears on nearly half of all power rankings and is used by 2.7% of the power ranked player base. In Zacharay's absence, Zomba has emerged as the character's largest contributor, accounting for over 1/4 of his results. This number is pretty staggering considering the sheer number of mains, and unsurprisingly, the fall off from there is steep. MK Big Boss comes in at 2nd at 14.2, and Anathema at 9% in 3rd. While much has been made over Zomba's rise to the top, recent out-of-season results from Anathema prove the character will remain one of the most used and reliable top tiers in the game, at least from what the data shows. With Zacharay returning to sweep a major, the character is back to having 2 top mains in North America and Japan. There's endless possibilities for career-defining runs from players like SSSR, Epic Gabriel, Centro, and more with players like Anathema and Wadi showing they can cleanly top 8 major events still. So the future of this character is about as bright as it can get. While Diddy Kong did have a robust metagame in Smash 4 Wii U, he started off rough in Smash Ultimate. By the end of 2019, he was barely scraping by the top 40, where a lot of mid-tier characters roamed. However, buffs proved beneficial, and the eventual swarm of players picking the character up has led to an unquestionable rise. Ending the first half of 2022 at 13th, Diddy saw a lot of zigzagging before rising to the top through support from both North America and Japan. Tweak unsurprisingly tops the list at nearly 1/4 of the character results from the season, but Aaron and Ryuo crack in an average of about 10 or 11% themselves, with the rare appearance from Esuji and Zenodo rounding things out. Notable here is that all these players besides Ryuo seem to mostly stick with other characters in 2019, and 3 of them had a long history with Diddy Kong and Smash Wii U. This return to greatness for Diddy Kong signaled a lot of lost players back to the character, enabling a significant rise. Even though there's not much on record for the character before 2022, Diddy Kong is the 10th most played character on power rankings and manages to appear on nearly 1/3 of all power rankings. That's actually a huge comeback for a character that seemed lost to nerfs. Moreover, Diddy Kong has staged the comeback in spite of many new characters populating the scene since 2019. This might be partly due to his historical top tier status and high usage in prior games. In a game with endless character choices full of gimmicks and weird mechanics, Wolf, the 3rd Spacey, is a simple, effective character that appeals to fundamentals. Despite not appearing in Smash 4, Wolf seemed to strike a chord with most players when Ultimate came out, widely popular and the game's de facto number 1 for several months in terms of results. By the end of 2019, he held a respectable number 2 position just narrowly behind Joker. Now he's in a very peculiar position. Using only international and major level data, Wolf is at 13th. Still high, but a big drop. Regionally, however, Wolf was first by the ending of the PGR V3 season, blowing past R.O.B and only being challenged by Palutena. Wolf seems to have retained a large, loyal fan base over the years, with 37 contributing players during the first half of 2022. This is also backed by 3.2% of the power rank player base using him, with his overall appearance rate on power rankings approaching 50%. As expected, his contributions are heavily split, with Orion at 19.4% and Ouch at 13.7%, contributing more than 10% of Wolf's results. While we have seen some good peaks from these players, as well as Jackal, some don't consistently solo main Wolf, with Atelier and Moxie both using Pokemon Trainer and Larry Lara also using Falco. With this in mind, Wolf has been able to stay high on results figures, but benefits from local and regional events. While a lot of common top tiers in Ultimate were good in prior titles or entirely new, Palutena was frequently considered quite bad in Smash 4. Persistently ranked as low or bottom tier, a series of new game buffs would turn her from a throwaway into a day 1 top tier. Just like with Wolf, Palutena has an ease of use and a kit that's comfortable for a lot of former top tier mains in Smash 4. Her matchup spread helps stifle the game's number of overwhelming matchups and rewards strong fundamentals. Unsurprisingly, she's been very successful. While Wolf has seen a sharp decline between regional versus international crosstabs, Palutena definitely does not. Palutena is number 1 on the combined list for the first half of 2022 and only drops to 4th on international scores. In addition, she's the most common character among power ranked players, with 3.4% of the player base using her and appearing on 48.6% of power rankings. While Wolf has also struggled to find success on the big stage, Palutena before and after quarantine has seen plenty of successful mains. Chag, Rafflo, and Louis Money all regularly see top 8 and have collected several wins. Those 3 alone collectively make up about 55% of the character's results, but you can't describe her as top heavy. Like Wolf, she has over 30 contributing mains, though while Wolf is split evenly between North America and Japan, Palutena is largely absent from Japan metagame, with just 6.8% of her results coming from the country. Her potential continues to be enormous, with Jace, formerly Bedgar, placing 5th in contributions, despite only attending events in Mexico. If SoCal makes a big splash, players like Quinn and Chase stand to give Palutena big gains. The various shifts we tend to see in top players are mostly absent from Palutena, with new mains or up-and-coming players making up for what is lost in the quarantine era. One of the final DLC characters, Pyra and Mythra, became instantly successful. Already a part of the popular Swordy subtype, the character was bolstered with high mobility and excellent frame data, and the ability to essentially turn into a heavy at will. It was a perfection of the transformation character that Smash long struggled to balance. The result, ironically, is a bit unbalanced, with the character flooding results quickly and seeing an influx of use from nearly every top player that played a Swordy. While some stuck with them, there have been high-profile incidents like MKLeo struggling to dominate with the character and Spargo largely sidelining them for Cloud. Still, last year's final Super Major saw the top 3 using Aegis, with Cosmos primed to be the new major winning thread. Out of nowhere, it seemed like the game had landed itself the most ubiquitous DLC fighter since Cloud in Smash 4. This undeniably left an impact on things, inspiring an entire player base to rise. With Cosmos having some consistency issues and both top Mexican players often not fully committing to Aegis and Bracket, Shuton took the helm this year. While definitely best known for his Olimar play, he splits use between both, locking up 1/4 of all Aegis results. Cosmos comes in at 2nd with 16.9% of the results. There also isn't much difference in the cross tab. Aegis ended the first half of 2022 at 7th, with her rank being 6th both using majors and just using regionals. Like with Palutena, she's widely popular and has no trouble getting high placements at majors, and is a fixture in local scenes, used by 3% of power ranked players and appearing on roughly 46% of power rankings. While Palutena and Wolf survived an intense period of metagame shifts, Aegis simply slotted in as if they were always there, sharing statistics with day 1 top tiers and used to success and even major victories by multiple top players. Cloud was the original when it came to assorted instant DLC meta success. He absolutely rocked Smash 4 within less of a month of release. By the time Ultimate came around, Cloud was due for nerfs, and under the weight of many similar Swordy characters, took the bench. While not irrelevant, he mostly stayed in the top 30 range, struggling to peak high and often dropped in favor of characters like Palutena, Wolf, or Joker. It's hard to say if Spargo was the major spark that reignited Cloud's metagame, but his constant presence at large online events over quarantine likely inspired people to give Cloud a try. Spargo defined Cloud during early 2022, sporting 37.9% of his results. Makola picked Cloud up to some success, and players like Scar and Nico demonstrated that a grassroots turn toward Cloud had started to grow. In Japan, former mains like Akasa, formerly Mangalitza, and Yak returned to using Cloud, with Luminous, a top-tier main of sorts, adding Cloud to his arsenal. The effort to revive Cloud's waning meta peaked with him being used by 2.1% of power ranked players, appearing on roughly 1/3 of those rankings in the process. So far, Cloud has remained widely used in 2022's second half, with its only major loss internationally coming from Curry Governor, who sidelined the character in favor of Chrom. Wild switch, but you got it, bro. It's unlikely Cloud will ever approach the heights he saw in Smash 4, where he was able to choke the life out of entire formats. RIP Smash 4 dubs. He does seem unlikely to languish again, making him one of the biggest positive character shifts post-quarantine. Joker's reign in Ultimate was strong throughout 2019 after its release, with MKLeo sitting on a giant throne. Despite his hold over the metagame, Joker became increasingly rare over the course of quarantine era, owning in part due to him being much harder to use in inconsistent environments like Wi-Fi. When events returned and character tracking resumed, there was confusion over how Joker continued to post such solid results. By the end of the PGRU V3 season, Joker remained just outside of top 10, despite lacking a lot of heavy hitters. Variably, his sources seemed to go either on hiatus or stop using Joker entirely. Ventures like Void and Tweak using him failed to take off even in 2019. With a lack of top-level growth and a steep decline in top mains, where even could his results be coming from? Well, just like with Wolf, the answer is regional usage. Joker pulled up at 7th place for the first half of 2022 in regional crosstabs. For major level events, Joker declined quite a bit, hitting 20th place. Regionally, Joker continues to see success in Europe, with EMAS doing well in the UK when he was active. Lemon, a British Columbia player, contributes 8.4% of results, the highest from any North American player at the moment. This only being challenged by Mars. However, Omega does seem poised to overtake Lemon's numbers in the PGRU V4 season. Despite losing a lot of top players, the character's impact remained, seared into regions across the world that continue to use Joker. With Zachary's return and increasing results from players like Omega and Subo, Joker may be poised for a comeback, and this time it'll be at major events. Thanks for watching. This has been TKbreezy. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here at PGstats, and also come over to the stream and hit that follow button, or maybe even the sub button, because I need it. Please help. All right, thank you. All right, goodbye.